everyone. Thanks for listening to Wake Up Lookup, a podcast where we connect events happening in real time to the gospel of Jesus Christ. I'm Zack. In today's episode, we're talking about the death of woke. At least that's according to The Economist, a magazine that did a study recently of whether or not the woke ideology that was on the rise, really from 2015 and beyond, is as popular today as it was then. Woke is one of those terms that really means whatever the person using it means. Usually what is conveyed by the idea of woke is the idea that all things are governed by some kind of power struggle, that behind everything is a power dynamic of privilege versus underprivileged, of white and black, male and female, that being woke is becoming aware of this power dynamic. And if you're on the privileged side, working against your own privilege to undermine this system. What The Economist did is looked at the idea of woke across four categories: a higher education, a business, a media, and public opinion. And the way they did that, this is really interesting, is they identified 154 words that usually are used under the umbrella of wokeness, words like intersectionality and that kind of thing, white privilege, stuff like that. 154 different terms, and then they measured how often those terms appeared in school curriculum, for education, in corporate handbooks, for business, in newspapers and television, for media, and so on and so forth. And what they found is that those words are being used less now than any time before 2015. In other words, wokeness is not nearly as popular a concept as it was in 2015. It peaked around 2020, 2021, but it has regressed ever since. The reason why this is worth noting on a podcast like this, focused on things from a Christian perspective, is really two reasons. The first is that woke ideology is really, in a lot of ways, antithetical to the gospel. It speaks to a kind of corporate sinfulness over and against personal sinfulness. It speaks to this power struggle that we see our neighbor not as made in the image of God and inherently equal, but as either undeserving of privilege or not getting the recognition they deserve. Of course, ideas like racial reconciliation and equality are biblical concepts, but woke ideology isn't pointing us to Jesus to bring about those things. It's pointing us to guilt and shame to actually lead to those things. So the fact that it's on the decline is a positive from a gospel perspective. But the second thing is this. I think there's a kind of fatalism that can sometimes creep in to the church, that as we hear unhelpful, kind of crazy secular ideas that are being pushed out in the world, it is tempting to say, well, the genie's out of the bottle, you can't put it back in. That secular ideas that become mainstream are impossible to push back against, that we're kind of condemned to this forever minority opinion where we can never get our culture to think rightly about these things. But the data says that isn't true. Actually, ideas can be defeated, that over time, pushing back against concepts that are not biblical and therefore not true and therefore not helpful actually can and does work. That bad, untruthful ideas will over time prove that they are just that. That over time, even secular people will realize this doesn't work. And so all the more reason to present truth in the face of lies, to present fact in the face of ideology. The simple matter is that by pushing back against cultural delusion, we can actually shift things back in a positive way. What comes to mind here is something like the book of Daniel, where time and time again, Daniel or Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or someone in their circle is pushing back against the Babylonian culture, pushing back against the Babylonian ideas of God, whether that's by not eating the king's food or refusing to pray, to not pray to God, or refusing to bow down to an idol. And every one of these situations, not only do they take a stand for God, but God uses their stand to actually shift the culture. I think that's what's happened here. The culture is shifting back towards some better ideas than wokeness. Now, this is important because culture isn't going to stop pushing bad ideas. I think about, for example, the gender affirming surgery that's being promoted for children. That's a terrible idea. But what we're seeing is that when we push back, when we speak truth in the face of lies, things actually can change. Of course, we should do it winsomely. Of course, we should do it humbly. We should do it in a way that is loving to our neighbor, but we should do it. I mean, in large part, that's what we're trying to do with every episode of Wake Up Lookup. Aim at bad ideas, cultural lies, and speak truth to them. Listen, never believe that we can't fix things. Never believe that truth can't defeat lies. It might take time. It might take time. But what this is showing us is that bad ideas prove to be bad ideas over time. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. While you're here, we'd love to ask you to hit subscribe or to like so you get future content. If you listen to the audio version too, make sure you leave a review and a comment. That really helps. Consider sharing it on social media and helping us get the word out. And hey, while you're here, check out all the other content that Christ Community Chapel is putting out, including the videos that are around me right now.